he wanted his generals to marry Oriental wives. He wasn't executing all kinds of people. He was conciliating populations. So, you know, he wasn't doing anything like the Habakkuk commentary presents. He wasn't a vicious, brutal thug like the Roman generals and emperors were. That's why people who praise Rome, I mean, amaze me, because there's nothing praiseworthy in those really brutal, inhuman rulers that were succeeded one after the other that you can read about in Suetonius, as I told you. 12 Caesars. I mean, they're just, maybe Augustus was a little bit, even he was quite a little bit sophisticated, but all the others were just thugs and, you know, brutes. Most of them, all the generals that succeeded, very little nobility in any of them. Later, maybe Trajan a little bit, or Hadrian, they try to say, but these people had no mercy on people who opposed them at all. Okay, so the earth grew silent before him, and his ambitious heart swelled with pride. This starts where all the visions in Daniel start. He assembled powerful forces, subdued provinces, nations, princes. Sounds like what I read you in the Habakkuk commentary, I admit. Anyway, he didn't farm out his taxes, so that's different from what we have in the Habakkuk commentary. By the time Alexander took to his bed and he was dying, he summoned his comrades and divided his kingdom among them while he was still alive. I can't vouch for that. He reigned 12 years, then he died. Each aspired to his own region, assumed crowns after his death. They and their heirs after them for many years brought increasing evils into the world. I'm going to sort of read a lot of this out loud just so you get it. I know you've read it. If your translation is different from mine, that's okay. If it's just a word or something, don't worry about it. If it's really something really different, then certainly ask about it. Obviously, every translation is going to differ, because they wouldn't publish it otherwise. They would be accused of plagiarism. You know, so the translator has to put different words in. So if you say, well, my words are different, well, they better be different, or the guy will say, you've stolen my translation. So, you know, it's got to be different. But you can basically see if it's the same, more or less, meaning. So this is pretty good. They all had crowns, and they brought increasing evil into the world. Well, we get the point here. Does this book like any of these people? No. Does the Habakkuk Pesher like any of these people? No. Do any of these people represent anything good? No. So this is why I'm so big in trying to show you what the struggle against Hellenization was. Now maybe you say, these people are foolish. Why are they struggling against this wonderful, beautiful Grecian Hellenistic mix that we're getting here? Lovely stories about gods and goddesses, beautiful bodies, oiling them all up for games and everything, you know, competing naked, wrestling, all this, having gymnasiums. Sure, it's really elegant. I'm not against it. I think it's, I'm not big on naked bodies, wrestling in oil skin and all that stuff, but you know, I don't think the way the Middle East is today, where people are wrapped in clothes so much you can hardly even see them, and they go down to the beach and the women can't even get out of their burqas or something like that. I don't think that's any better than the Hellenists, you know. So, I mean, some happy medium may be in there. So I'm not advocating one or the other. But this book doesn't like them. And it particularly doesn't like, guess who? Antiochus Epiphanes. That's line 10. See it? From these grew a sinful offshoot. Doesn't that sound like Daniel? Yeah, it's the same. It's the same spirit as Daniel. The same description, more or less. Antiochus Epiphanes. That's how we more or less know Daniel is a Maccabean era book. Someone asked me, what are the Hasmoneans? It's a fancy name for the Maccabeans. The ancestor of the Maccabeans at one point is called Hasmoneans. So in scholarly academic books, a lot of people like to call them Hasmoneans in some of the in academic literature. But you know, Maccabee is really Judas's nickname, Judas the Hammerer. But you know, you can call them Hasmoneans if you feel it's more pleasurable to you, or Maccabees, whatever you find is better. Anyway, he was a son of King Antiochus, once a hostage in Rome. He became king in 137th year of the kingdom of the Greeks, which according to what I have on my footnotes is about 175 BC. And then he came, in Israel, some backsliders, traitors, renegades, so on, led many people astray, and the Dead Sea Scrolls like that language, leading astray. The liar in the Dead Sea Scrolls leads many astray, says the Damascus document, column 1. Come, they said, let us reach an understanding with the pagans. I don't want to be cruel and overdo it, but I have to just note that this is basically what Paul does in his accommodation, reaches an understanding with the pagans, if you like. And so that is why a teacher of that kind might be described as leading many astray. Because he does, the reason circumcision is important, not to emphasize it as I said, or to advocate it one way or the other, make people feel better or worse when they have or don't have it, is because it's the sign of the covenant. In the Old Testament, it's the sign of the covenant. It means you took the covenant on yourself. You say, what a dumb way to take a covenant on yourself. You have to cut your foreskin off or something like that. Okay, rationally, intellectually, it might seem silly. But rational and intellectual is one thing. What makes an impression on time and history is another thing. When you do something like that, people take it very seriously. Sort of like, you know, tattooing or putting a hole in your tongue or something like that, you know. People never forget having done those kinds of things to themselves. So when you've taken something as serious as the covenant upon yourself, and that being the sign of the covenant, that will make an impression. Spinoza said he thought that the Jewish people would have survived the war for that alone. In his writings he said that. He's probably right, though the Jews were not the only ancient people that circumcised. The Egyptians did. I think the Jews may have gotten it from the Egyptians. The Muslims still do. Only thing that the Jews do it on the 8th day, according to traditional usage, whereas the Muslims do it often by the age of 13. I've been to circumcisions of Muslims in Palestine by the age of 13, and let me tell you, it is not a pleasant experience to see the poor guy there lying inside the house, almost dead. That's all I can tell you. Give the Jews credit.